There is no doubt that the image of what I saw then has taken on meaning anew, each of the countless times it has been revised, intensified, focused upon. Because within the hazy perimeter of the scene, nothing but the figure of that someone coming down the slope stands out with disproportionate clarity. And not without reason, this very image is the earliest of those that have kept tormenting and frightening me all my life. It was a young man who was coming down toward us with handsome, ruddy cheeks and shiny eyes, wearing a dirty roll of cloth around his head for a sweatband. He came down the slope, carrying a yoke of night soil buckets over one shoulder, balancing their heaviness expertly with his footsteps. He was a night soil man, a ladler of excrement. He was dressed as a laborer, wearing split-toed shoes with rubber soles and black canvas tops, and dark blue cotton trousers of the close-fitting kind called thigh pullers. The scrutiny I gave the young youth was unusually close for a child of 4, although I did not clearly perceive it at the time. For me, he represented my first revelation of a certain power, my first summons by a certain strange and secret voice. It is significant that this was first manifested to me in the form of a night soil man. Excrement is a symbol for the earth, and it was doubtlessly the malevolent love of the Earth Mother that was calling to me. I had a presentiment then that there is in this world a kind of desire like stinging pain. Looking up at that dirty youth, I was choked by desire, thinking, I want to change into him, thinking I want to be him. I can remember clarity that my desire had 2 focal points. The first was his dark blue thigh pullers, the other his occupation. The close-fitting jeans plainly outlined the lower half of his body, which moved lithely and seemed to be walking directly toward me. An inexpressible adoration for those trousers was born in me. I did not understand why. His occupation, at that instant, in the same way that other children, as soon as they attain the faculty of memory, want to become generals, I became possessed with the ambition to become a night soil man. The origin of this ambition might have been partly in the dark blue jeans, but certainly not exclusively so. In time, this ambition became still stronger, and expanding within me, saw a strange development. What I mean is that toward his occupation I felt something like a yearning for a piercing sorrow, a body-wrenching sorrow. His occupation gave me the feeling of tragedy in the most sensuous meaning of the word, a certain feeling, as it were, of self-renunciation, a certain feeling of indifference, a certain feeling of intimacy with danger, a feeling like a remarkable mixture of nothingness and vital power. All these feelings swarmed forth from his calling, bore down upon me, and took me captive at the age of 4. Probably I had a misconception of the work of the night soil man. Probably I had been told of some different occupation and misled by his costume, was forcibly fitting his job into the pattern of what I had heard. I cannot otherwise explain it. Such must have been the case, because presently my ambition was transferred with some same emotion to the operation of Hanadensha, those streetcars decorated so gaily with flowers for the festival days. Such must have been the case because presently my ambition was transferred with those same emotions to the operators of Hanadensha. Those streetcars decorated so gaily with flowers for festival days, or again to subway ticket punchers. Both occupations gave me a strong impression of tragic lives of which I was ignorant and from which I seemed I was never excluded. This was particularly true in the case of the ticket punchers. The rows of gold buttons on the tunics of their blue uniforms became fused in my mind with the odor which floated through the subways in those days. It was like the smell of rubber or of peppermint, and readily called up mental associations of tragic things. I somehow felt it was tragic for a person to make his living in the midst of such an order. Existences and events occurring without any relationship to myself, occurring at places that not only appealed to my senses but were moreover denied to me. These, together with the people involved in them, constituted my definition of tragic things. It seemed that my grief at being internally excluded was always transformed in my dreaming into grief for those persons and their ways of life, and that solely through my own grief I was trying to share in their existences. If such were the case, the so-called tragic things of which I was becoming aware were probably only shadows cast by flashing presentiment of grief still greater in the future, of a lonelier exclusion still to come. There is another early memory involving a picture book. Although I learned to read and write when I was 5, I could not yet read the words in the book, so this memory also must date from the age of 4. I had several picture books about that time, but my fancy was captured completely and exclusively only by this one, and only by one eye-opening picture in it. I could dream away long and boring afternoons gazing at it, and yet when anyone came along I would feel guilty without reason, and would turn into flurry to a different page. The watchfulness of a sick nurse or a maid vexed me beyond endurance. I longed for a life that would allow me to gaze at the picture all the day through. Whenever I turned to that page, my heart beat fast. No other page meant anything to me. The picture showed a knight mounted on a white horse, holding a sword aloft. The horse, nostrils flaring, was pawing the ground with powerful forelegs. There was a beautiful coat of arms on the silver armor the knight was wearing. The knight's beautiful face peeped through the visor, and he brandished his drawn sword awesomely in the blue sky, confronting either death or at the very least some hurtling object full of evil power. I believed he would be killed the next instant. If I turned a page quickly, surely I can see him being killed. Surely there is some arrangement whereby, before one knows it, the picture in a picture book can be changed into the next instant. But one day, my sick nurse happened to open the book to that page. While I was stealing a quick, sideways glance at it, she said, "Does little master know this pictured story?" "No, I don't." "This looks like a man, but it's a woman. Honestly. Her name was Joan of Arc. The story is that she went to war wearing a man's clothes and served her country." A woman? I felt as though I had been knocked flat. The person I had thought a he was a she. If this beautiful knight was a woman and not a man, what was there left? Even today I feel a repugnance deep-rooted and hard to explain toward women in male attire. This was the first revenge by reality that I had met in life, and it seemed a cruel one, particularly upon the sweet fantasies I had cherished concerning his death. From that time on, I turned my back on the picture book. I would never so much as take it in my hands again. Years later, I was to discover a glorification of the death of a beautiful knight in a verse by Oscar Wilde. "Fair is the knight who lieth slain amid the rush and reed."